Hello, guys, and welcome once again to Let's Football Live. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'll wait for some of you guys to log in. My guest today is the co-owner and president of FC Goa, Akshay Tandon. I'm just going to wait for you guys to get on, and hopefully have him with us in just a moment. Hello, S. Vishnu, Arvind, ABC, AA, Mr. Cristiano. Not quite the night for him yesterday, was it? Despite scoring a brace. Richard Paul, hello. Yeah, really excited about the prospect of this one. We know what FC Goa have done in the Hero Indian Super League. The first ever official Hero ISL Shield winners, of course, but a journey that for Akshay started in, just before season 3, where FC Goa had to bear the ignominy of finishing right at the bottom, and then they went right to the top by the end of season 6. They won the Hero Super Cup along the way. Like I said, they've already won the Hero ISL Shield. But more importantly, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes of FC Goa, whether it's the FC Goa Foundation, the Forza Goa Foundation, the Goa Pro League that he's been actively involved with, or the number of Goans who come through the ranks and go on to find a place in the 11. So plenty to talk about, including the new signings, of course, which you guys are always interested in. So I'm going to get Akshay on straight away. Hopefully he's with us. Hi, Akshay. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for sparing time. And I believe you've been a very busy man. Most of us have tried to use the lockdown to sort of get away from things a little bit. But for you, things don't really simmer down too much, do they? It's a 24/7 gig.
Yeah. I mean, it's like for a while, it's also been wait and watch. But while we've been waiting and watching, of course, there's been a lot of changes that we have sort of anticipating, making changes internally, adjusting to this new normal, and adjusting to hopefully, which will still be a fruitful season in, the Indian Super League. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, it's been a hectic few months.
Certainly looking forward to it. Actually, I'm going to jump straight to the number of fan questions that have come for you. And the first one is from RD Rajat _Dubey, who wanted to know what inspired you into getting into football, Indian football in particular, because that decision to invest in and operate FC Goa in 2016 must have come after really going through all the ins and outs of what the emotions can look like owning a football club.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, we, in 2015, 2016, we kind of saw football was at the ground floor, so to speak. And we knew that the capacity for football and the potential for football was absolutely huge. And Goa being such a huge footballing sort of nation, or, a state by itself, we knew that the potential, or we still know that the potential for football is crazy in this country, and we stand by that. 3 years later, I would say that we feel like we're now on first floor. We've moved past that sort of feeling like we're still figuring out what we're doing, or and yeah, I mean the fandom in Goa, the amount of passion that is there. We're sort of honored to be custodians of that passion for the people of Goa. And for me particularly, development through football, I see as a huge sort of potential. And what I personally sort of, strive for through FC Goa and with everything that we have been doing. So, yeah, it's been an exhilarating journey. It's been, highs and lows on a weekly basis. I never fully anticipated how emotional the roller coaster is. But yeah, 4 years into it, you can say I'm fairly addicted to the process and looking forward to the next, 10, 15 years.
Oh, I like that. I'm sure the fans like the sound of that as well. A decade and a half at the minimum. But I remember reading in the interview, and I remember reading your write up as well on LinkedIn, which mentioned quite clearly that this is a 24/7 job. As much as you want to lie to yourself, you can't really get away from it. Whether it's the signing, or whether it's the future of the club, or goal in football at large, you're pretty much involved in finding out about things and looking at ways to improve. And this is something I wanted to know, and a lot of fans have asked questions about it as well, in terms of your understanding of Goan football culture and how that's improved over the last 4 years of not just investing your money in it, but investing your emotion in it.
I sort of underestimated, how competitive I would be, and how that sort of competitive streak kind of takes over, takes precedence almost over everything else. And of course, like we are, and being in football, running a club, you feel like you're in a constant state of competition. Whether it's off season, pre-season, whether it's middle of the season, even if you're on top of the table, like that's when it feels like you have to have all of your sort of, like ears to the ground and, know the entire pulse of the entire sort of footballing community. Goan football, we have learned a lot from Goan football, and we have chosen to focus on developing Goan players and Goan football as our ethos and philosophy. And, you've seen that on the pitch, and you've seen that in our youth structure, that, like we probably have more locals on the field or within our squad at any given time, probably more than any other club. And, that is very intentional. And, we are carrying forward a legacy that has been started by the Tempos, the Salgaonkars, the Churchills, the Sporting, the Vascos, and there's, 160 odd clubs in Goa. And, the way we recruit, the way we find players for, there's several players in our dev team, that we have found through village tournaments that don't even sort of qualify to be within, say the overall professional structure. And so that's how entrenched football is within the Goan sort of DNA. And we are still in the process of figuring out how we can best sort of align that whole system and work with it. So yeah, it's been an exhilarating. I've said that already, but yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster. Figuring out how to work with the local clubs as well as represent the entire sort of Goan identity and community.
That couldn't have been easy, because when you took charge, you had to go through an entire season where Zico's reign was essentially getting over, and Goa had to bear the ignominy of finishing at the bottom. There was a question from Kapil Parwar. He wanted to know, since you arrived, what are the things you feel have gone right, and the things which you feel you can still improve upon?
What's gone right is we are playing the kind of football we wanted to play. We, always wanted to be entertaining. Goa as a brand, as what it represents, like people have that feeling of, like Goa is where I have my fun. Goa is where, Goa is a place to enjoy yourself. And, so we wanted to represent that in our football. And so that's one thing that's sort of gone right. Developing the youth system and focusing on that from day one is already paying dividends for us. We have had a lot of promotion from our youth system into even our first team. So we feel like that's going right. We have managed to make some money out of transfers within Indian football. And, whether we wanted it or not, precedence doesn't exist for stuff like this to happen consistently. Right? So it's about creating that sort of new market almost, a lot of time, I see comments or people saying, oh, we have sold certain players and this and that. And I'm like, not much selling and buying goes on in Indian football. It's mostly always free sort of transfers where people contracts end. And there's a handful I can sort of count on my hand over the last few years that have even happened in ISL. So,
Right.
Just seeing these things sort of come together has been a good positive sign that yes, we're going in the right direction. What's not gone right, I would say, um, every day we are learning from what is happening all over the world, right? Like football is truly a global sport. So I could literally uh, have an endless list of what is going wrong and what could be done better. But if I was to choose one or two things, I would say that, mm, we haven't yet been able to set up our fully functional, separate sort of residential academy, which was part of our initial goals. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, with COVID, that's like, it's gotten sort of set back a little bit more than we originally wanted. But yeah, I mean, like more or less, I feel like we're on the right path. And yeah, I mean, I could do a lot of self-criticism, but I'll stop at that for now.
No, you don't have to because you had a plan to get into the Champions League in what 9 or 10 years. You made it in 6, so that's not a bad effort at all. So got to pat yourself on the back every now and then as well. I'm sure. But I'll take the next question, which comes from Leander Baz, who wanted to know your vision in terms of how to make FC Goa a team with an academy. You mentioned a team like Ajax. And I remember having a chat with Rohan Sharma of Odisha FC, who was also envisioning something like that for Odisha. Is that how you look at FC Goa? With an academy tradition, since you spoke about it?
Um, that's definitely the end game. At least that, I mean, like that's the end game that we can see today. That what we want to be able to do is consistently produce players through our youth system that can not
Yeah.
only play in the ISL but can be considered to be start playing, say, if I mean, like in second division leagues to start with in Europe, and then sort of eventually moving. Because the moment we can have a breakthrough like that, it would change the entire perception of the whole ecosystem. So that's definitely one large sort of end goal milestone that we are gearing ourselves to be focused towards. And I mean, whether it's Ajax or Benfica, I mean, these are very large examples, where it's happening. Well, like I would focus on, what an Uruguay has done or what Iceland has done has been slightly more localized and community based, which is what we are hoping to be doing rather than focusing on, like a huge European club because like it's not fair to compare it. Like it's not apples to apples. There's a long way before we can start comparing ourselves to an Ajax or, club like Benfica, which is consistently producing players at that level. So yeah.
Sure. I mean, I think that's a problem a lot of us Indian fans have. Sometimes we get attracted to the possibilities of going into a World Cup before we start punching above our weight in Asia. So sometimes reality check is required up here. There was another one from Kyle D'Souza, 19. In fact, Kyle D'Souza has given 3 or 4 questions in one. So you can pick and choose which one you want to answer. He wants to know, will FC Goa squad have all Indian players who are Goans? What are your future plans in terms of development? What does ISL lack? And should a salary cap be removed according to you? You can pick whichever 2 you want. I've given you 4 from Kyle.
Mm, So I think, I mean, I'll start with the last one. According to me, a salary
Yeah.
cap is like it's very important. Like the good thing that's been happening in ISL and like with the league rules as they've evolved is you've had less and less foreigners in the squad. Which means that more and more money is going towards Indian players. Um, and which means that a big part of your sort of salary budget is being spent on Indian players as opposed to before where it was predominantly focused on foreign players. So that's the
Yeah.
direction in which we need to keep moving. If we remove the salary cap, we kind of break, a market of Indian players that's not yet mature. That's how I sort of feel about it because, right now there are probably 150 or 200 players in the ISL, Indian players in the ISL who are getting paid well. Over the next 3 or 4 years, and including the I League, it will be 300 players. Like over the next 3 to 4 years, 5 years, we need to make that pool of Indian players who are getting paid good money a lot larger, as opposed to just spend more money in the highest levels at ISL.
Right.
So clubs should spend more money, and if they have more money to spend, I feel like it should be directed towards creating infrastructure, creating youth systems, building their own squads, having
Yeah.
150, 200 players on their books, like so they're giving a lot more stability to more players and creating a larger ecosystem, rather than
Yeah.
just spend money on the first team, which I feel um, may not be the right direction for Indian football at this time. Yeah, so I've answered maybe two questions within that. What were the other two?
No, Kyle's actually on the chat. He said hello to us a couple of times. Just the way he fired
Hi,
four
Kyle.
questions and two hit the target. Yeah, I mean he's tried his luck over there. But thank you so much for answering that. And Kyle, thanks for your question. And I remember distinctly, I was lucky enough to be on commentary for the game where Kerala were playing FC Goa in Kochi, and it was 2-1, and then eventually Lenny finds the back of the net, and it became 2-2. That was a time, Akshay, when I think Goa were a man down. There were 9 Goans on the pitch, or sorry, 9 Indians on the pitch, 7 of them were Goans. All the 3 substitutes that the coach had made were all Goans. Is that the sort of vision that the club has going forward? Just to reiterate what Kyle is trying to say.
I think absolutely, I mean, like that was a very, very proud moment for us, like I think I spoke about the fact that we had 7 goals on the field for a couple of weeks after that match, and I was really proud of that fact. And and even in the last 2 seasons, there have been a few games or where the Indian boys and the Goan boys have had their sort of time to shine, and that's definitely the direction that we want to be going in. And the way we are looking to build our squad over the next couple of years, it's all focused around what we are doing with our Indian players and our Goan boys, and the promotions that we have had from our dev team to the first team kind of shows you very clearly how that is happening. It's there for everyone to see. And will there ever be 11 Goans or 11 Indians on the pitch? I think that may not be an end goal that we are all sort of working towards, because the 11 Goans or 11 Indians on the pitch is, that's what the national team is for, But more and more Indians on the squad, in the pitch, like having foreigners always helps. We are competing in the Asian sort of territory, so which basically allows for 3 foreigners, 1 Asian, and the rest Indians. And I feel like the faster we move towards that, and the more we are aligned with the ecosystem that we are a part of, the better. And it always does help to have some experience which is from outside within the squad to sort of give it that extra sort of energy. So yeah, that's how I see that.
And in just a short span of 6 years, it's already become like a family club where the state of Goa looks at FC Goa for their source of happiness, their brand of football that's been attacking and aggressive and really attractive. But at the same time, you guys are giving back to the society in so many ways. The Forza Goa Foundation comes to mind. What does it stand for, Akshay, and what is the vision for it going forward?
See, when we came in and I was studying how grassroots programs should be run and what are the best grassroots programs around the world, we realized that nationally as well as at a state level, at that time at least, there was no competition for under 6, under 8, under 10, under 12 levels. It has been introduced since then. There are the baby leagues by the AIFF, and a whole bunch of other state associations have been doing some good work around those age groups. And so we kind of just started the Forza Goa Foundation as a combination of, doing our own leagues, having a think tank of our own, creating technical sort of know-how within the space for others to sort of use. I feel like federations, like state associations require someone to do and, to create the framework of how they can be running similar leagues within their own systems and all of that. So, that's how Forza Goa Foundation really came about, where we wanted to try and plug the gaps of what's missing in the grassroots sort of ecosystem, use Goa as a pilot, and then use whatever we are doing in Goa as a model for others to replicate. And, like we want to make it an open source sort of knowledge hub, or, and in the coming year or so, we'll also be launching a fellowship program for coaches where you can come in and it'll be a 2-year fellowship where we don't just give people licenses, but also along with a lot of partners, show them over 2 years how to really be part of, like how to create a footballing ecosystem wherever they're from. Right? So they could start their own leagues and, give them that practical experience on ground within our system to show how it's done. So it's so, so the 3 big gaps are sort of co-ed grassroots training for girls and boys, coaching and good coaching education for like the coaching infrastructure. We have fewer B licensed coaches than Iceland, and Iceland has a population, I think that's 4,000 times smaller than ours, something along those lines. So we really need to build coaching infrastructure. I mean, so the foundation essentially came about to address these gaps and see what we can do to fill them within the Indian footballing ecosystem.
I mean, the legacy is fantastic, isn't it? You go right back to Brahmanand Shankwalkar, and I mean, the talent that come through the state of Goa have gone on to represent the nation. And now FC Goa find themselves directly qualifying for the group stages of the AFC Champions League. So that legacy is almost being carried on by these fine players over there. Players can come and go like a lot of fans have commented today as well. But the club, the loyalty to the club is what matters. And Goa find themselves in the pinnacle of Asia. So Rana Sutradhar had a question, Mr. Backpacker and Omchand K21, all of them asking the same thing. Your vision for the AFC Champions League now, since you've gotten there much earlier than you planned earlier?
I mean, it's very, very exciting. It's a daunting challenge, but we are more than privileged and humbled to like be the first to kind of represent India in it. And we, plan to take it like a game at a time, one game at a time. And the idea is to get points out of every game. I mean, that's our strategy, and it's an intimidating thing to sort of put in front of you, but I wouldn't use that as a way to kind of discount our, what we could potentially surprise. Like, I mean, like I'm hoping that we are able to surprise a few teams and, against the biggest and best teams in Asia. And if you're able to come out with a few great performances, that's really what we're sort of gearing for. And no one really knows where we stand against the Champions League in Asia. So far, right? So, but I mean, like we're going in there with a very positive sort of attitude. Juan, our new coach, is very much sort of aligned to what we want to achieve, not just in ISL, but of course also in AFC. And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited, and we've been planning for it now for several months, and like you'll see that in some of the signings that are going to be announced in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I will come to that in just a moment because I've got to pick your brains on some of the signings that have already been announced, Akshay. But another question from Togi Thomas, who wanted to know, and since FC Goa is sort of leading the pack now and taking Indian clubs into the AFC Champions League, what is stopping India from becoming a powerhouse in world football is what Togi Thomas wants to know. And what FC Goa can do to improve or overcome that, according to him.
See, I mean, like I'll use the Forza Goa Foundation as an example, right? Like, in the last 3 years, we've been between the ages of 6 and 12. There are about 120 football teams that sign up to play in our grassroots leagues, right? The way that I see it, that's the start of 120 potential clubs, like 10% of these small teams 10 years down the line could be football clubs. And of course, like we expect these numbers to keep increasing year on year. The number of girls participating 2 years ago was 10. Last year, they were over 300, But we do this entire sort of football league within the grassroots on small budgets. It's community driven, it's volunteer driven, it's driven by parents. There's only a few coaches that are involved per zone. We break up Goa into 3 zones. And the whole community sort of gets together and drives this um, drives this whole sort of initiative, and league, and we have hundreds of matches being organized in this sort of community-driven, volunteer-supported format.
Yeah.
And and then what happens is, what we've seen happen is that while the dads are waiting on the sideline, so after a few weeks you have a dads league that starts, and then they are also doing a few matches against the dads of the things, and then and then the moms went and started their own league, or their own matches, right? So you had 3 or 4 moms team who were competing against one another. So as long as football can grow like this and not be dependent on, the whims and fancy or the financial conditions of the current benefactors of football, which are the owners of the clubs and the leagues and stuff, which require a lot of, personal funding. So when you are able to move towards sustainable models where community drives the support behind not just clubs, but leagues and, the state associations, and there's parents and mothers and fathers, and the whole community is involved in doing it. I feel like, that's the transition we need to make, that it should not be dependent on, an Akshay Tandon or a Pat Jindal, or, to continue sort of funding or, bringing in that outside money into football. Like, football itself needs to be able to sort of drive that. And that happens at the grassroots level with more and more community engagement. So that's what, our vision is as well, that we want to transition as FC Goa into being not dependent on the owners, but dependent on the club itself, and be self sort of sufficient. And hopefully in the next, 4 to 5 years we'll be there. So, that's what I think needs to happen for the whole ecosystem to go through this, speed bump that we are currently on, I think.
Speaking of the ecosystem, and that's a very interesting point of view about the autonomous nature of how growth could happen in the future, Akshay. There's a question from Deepak Nag, 1996, and it's a question that's been asked of a lot of owners of late, which is any idea for a women's football club for FC Goa?
So we actually started a women's football team 2 seasons back, and we played in the Goa Women's League that happened over here, and it was a great experience, and we learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
We decided to not do it in the last season because we felt like the support of the entire ecosystem was kind of missing. Where the competition only sort of lasted for 2 months. So you had to pull all this together, bring all these girls together. They had to stop doing whatever they were doing. And the preseason, the season, everything would kind of start and then just finish, Yeah. And then there's 10 months of no competition. And that doesn't make sense, So, with a very sort of heavy heart, we decided that we need to do this in a way where the system or the entire sort of platform on which women's football and women clubs are being established are at least beneficial to everyone involved. Where they're able to have that sense of security that this is something I can count on, and again, parents can feel like that they can that their daughters are onto something as opposed to a 2-month or 3-month activity, in the middle of the year. So, but that being said, AIFF has, I think, right now initiated that every ISL club should have a women's team, and we are sort of looking forward to that. And again, through our foundation, we are already doing a lot of work with girls, between the ages of 6 and 12, and so we are already sort of planting seeds of what will hopefully become a girls sort of youth teams, are under 13, under 15, and that is definitely in the pipeline. So hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years, you'll see that happening from our side as well.
But from an owner's point of view, I wanted to know, and Pratik Mishra had a similar question. Pratik Mishra 08 Ozil to be precise. Wanted to know, where should clubs invest more, Akshay, according to you? The stadiums, youth system, infrastructure. Yes, the women's league might happen later on from FC Goa point of view, but currently, stadium, youth system, infrastructure, is that the focus? Are those the focus areas?
I think, I mean, the focus area for us would be the academy and the youth system. Um,
Right.
I think there's already a lot of existing stadium infrastructure that our government has built over the last, many decades that are already not being utilized to their full potential. So before we go
Yeah.
out and start putting money into our own stadiums, I think we have to first at least exhaust the ecosystem as it is, and do it in an economically sort of viable way. So I would put all my energy into trying to. I mean, like I'll tell you how I think about it. Right now, we have about 120 to 150 players that are signed to FC Goa between like in our entire ecosystem. Now, if I had more money, first I would create the best ecosystem for these 150 players, and then I would create partnerships with more and more clubs and more academies to become our feeder sort of clubs and academies, so that my 150 roster of players can become maybe 300 or 400 and 500. So the larger pool of players I know I'm developing in a certain way, with a certain style of football, with a certain sort of um, you know entire coaching system, that I think is going to pay the biggest dividend in the years to come.
Yeah, I think that answers Navya, Shiva Prasad Rao, and Blue Forever's question as well. I want to know your plans in the near future about building a new stadium and all of that. So we'll move swiftly on towards the bigger issue, which is 2021 season. Now we know that it could look dramatically different from how it was in 1920 or even before that, with so many changes in the league and of course in global football now, as we've seen already with the Premier League. Tell us a bit about the biggest new signing, which is Juan Fernando, which is essential to the change that you're bringing about, and as we look to start the rebuilding process. How much were you involved in choosing him for his philosophy?
So Juan is, definitely the guy that's we were looking for the new. I mean, like say for this next phase of FC Goa. In the experience that he's had with Volvos in Greece, he was like he helped a club go from the third division to the first division, and then even got coach of the year in the first division. And he was very involved with doing that in conjunction with the club's owners as well as the whole youth system. And the more we spoke to him, the more, and he's got PhDs, and he's kind of like a mad scientist professor of football. Like
Mad scientist.
yeah, I mean, like he's really thinking about the entire sort of. I mean, like he's thinking about things that, there's the data side of it, there's the human side of it, there's the mental health side of it, there's the tactical side of it, there's the technical side of it, there's the sporting, and there's the economic side of it. And
Yeah.
he's very like he's able to jump through and weave through conversations on any of these subject matters in a very fluid and easy kind of a way. It's like he kind of lives and breathes football, and so and he was very very excited about also working with the youth, and like working with Derek Barrera, who is our technical director and head of our youth, to help us not only with the first team but also create that sort of stable ecosystem of players that can be going from our youth system to the first team. So very very exciting new chapter, and I think Juan's the man to sort of guide us through it. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I was very involved with like who our new coach was going to be, and I spoke to Juan several times before like we got him on board. So yeah.
Was there any particular, if I could just press you on that point a little bit, was there any particular point in those conversations that you had with Juan where you said, "Wow, he is the man"?
I mean, like he had seen a whole bunch of like our games, not only from this last season, but like the last like 3-4 seasons. So he had, I mean, like his level of research, his attention to detail, and his very honest sort of viewpoint on what he would do with our squad, and and of course we had warned him in advance that there's going to be major changes as far as signings and all these things go, and like he kind of was like very matter of factly about all of it. He's like, yeah, he's like, that's football, you know. I mean, that happens every year with most clubs, so that's not something I'm worried about. And just his sheer knowledge of like, you know, what he wanted to do within our system and what his thing was for me was like, like I was pretty wowed by his entire sort of demeanor and you know vision for himself, you know. And for us, it was about aligning our vision with somebody else's vision, and you know, so it was a nice sort of eureka moment where I was like, yeah, I think this is the guy, you know. Yeah.
Fantastic. Looking forward to interacting with Juan as well in the future. There was another question from Extremely Kaushik. You already answered a part of it, which is about the new coach. Next, he wants to know about the new players who've already been signed. Indians in particular. There's Nadeem, there's Sanson, there's Chote. How involved are you on a regular basis with guys like Ravi? You know, in recruiting some of these guys to come to Goa. Not like you need an invitation to come to Goa otherwise.
Um, you know, so like we have, um, like generally speaking, we have say like a monthly review meeting with our youth teams and our youth sort of heads who are managing all of that. And when we are in transfer season, those meetings happen on a weekly basis. You know, where we are actively evaluating who we're. I mean, say from the players who are going to be running out of contract, we are actively evaluating who we want to retain, at what values would we want to retain them, and you know who else exists in the ecosystem or outside of our ecosystem that could potentially replace that. So it's a very hands-on kind of, you know, I mean, the players are the bloodline of any club, you know. So I would say 3 years ago, like I didn't really know how to be involved in a lot of these conversations because I didn't necessarily understand the depth of, like just having technical knowledge on the subject matter. Now I feel more and more adept to be able. I mean, I've learned over the years, and I feel like my 2 cents have like some value in these meetings. And but yeah, like we are actively involved. We discuss most of these positions with these guys like on a fairly regular basis, and it's like what's going to be possible, what's not going to be possible as far as signings go, like a lot faster than I mean, it sort of reaches the media or the public, right? So yeah, I mean, and as far as all of the new signings, I mean, the average age of most of these players is fairly young, so they're all for the future. But they all have the caliber of being able to compete for the first team spot. So it's going to be an interesting preseason, and I wouldn't discount anybody, and like we could be having a fairly young or an even younger sort of first team squad that we had last season or the seasons before in the upcoming one. And yeah.
Actually, I wanted to know, I mean, in those meetings that you talk about, which are weekly during the transfer window, like you said, are there any points where you smash the table and you say, no, I want it this way? Or are you the kind of person who likes to listen to everyone's point of view and say, right, you have a point, but I'd like it to be this way?
No, I think that, see, you have to find a good balance between whatever decisions we are taking with any players, because like if you're signing somebody, that's a relationship you have to maintain for several years usually, right? So, like we never go into a signing without it being a unanimous decision of say the entire think tank that's behind it. So, do we ever stamp do I ever stamp my hand down and say no, I want that player? Probably not. I mean, like we might have done it in season 3 when we were looking to rebuild our Indian squad, particularly for certain Indian players. And like players like Brandon, Lenny, Seriton, Nawaz, Princeton. Like the score-born players. It's like like we'll go out of our way to try and sort of retain these people at our club at no matter what cost. But as far as foreign players go, it's a huge universe, and so there's never a thing that, oh, if we don't get this player, that it's the end for us, or we definitely need to get that player. We always feel like, okay, there's a very large footballing world, and we will be able to find players at the level that we need to. So it always has to sort of be a check mark with everybody, and like we try and never exceed our budgets. Like we try and stick to what we think is an economically disciplined decision as opposed to one that is purely out of emotion.
I was hoping you'd smash the table and you said, listen, no way is Karan Kuruminov not coming to FC Goa. And then he goes on to become one of the greatest strikers the league has ever seen. But speaking of foreign signings, there was a question from Buell Mudkiker. My apologies if I've got the pronunciation wrong. Buell. When will all the foreign signings been done? I know a couple have been made already, and some good ones at that.
I think we're fairly close to like finishing the like all of our signings. Like it's a matter of a few weeks. I think we're just sort of finalizing. I mean, like we know exactly who we're targeting, and those negotiations and conversations have been on for a very long time. I mean, I actually don't know off the top of my head who all exactly we have announced, so I'll keep my mouth shut. I'll check our Instagram really quickly on the site to see who we have announced and who we haven't. But yeah, I mean, it's all mostly done. And it's just about, I mean, like we can't prematurely announce anything before all the final paperwork and all of that is done. So like in a few weeks, I think we'll see the remaining 3 or 4 players that we have yet to announce. And yeah, like I'm looking forward to it. And I'm not going to lie, it's looking like a very, very strong squad to me. Like I'm not feeling like we're going to be missing something right now.
I mean, that's possibly the most positive news for all the fans, since they're always interested in signings. But we leave that to your media manager and to guys like Marcus Magilao, my friend, who's obviously keeping everybody nice and busy on Twitter all the time, which is never a bad thing to get people talking about Indian football.
Yeah. Sorry, what was that question? I think I just lost you for a second.
No, it was just an observation. I was just saying that because fans are always interested in signing, that knowing about who's going where, if there's a new player on the horizon.
I'm not going to lie, like 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't like that. Like, and it's really heartwarming to see how much interest there is behind, like, people wanting to know who we have signed. And of course, there was always, like a player announcement is always a big announcement. But now, I mean, like I've observed this myself. Like I know Marcus has gone from a few, like 1,000 or 2,000 followers on Twitter since the beginning of the lockdown to something like 7,000-8,000 followers. And I find it hilarious that there's just so many questions about, "Sir, please tell us, sir, please tell us." He's the great oracle of Indian football. But yeah, I mean, like it's just heartwarming for me to see that there's so much interest around people wanting to know. And yeah,
but on a funny note, there's a couple of texts I exchanged with a friend. I was planning to get a Persian cat for my wife for her birthday, and I was thinking whether I should text Marcus and say, would it be a good fit in a house like mine? But it didn't quite come to that. But okay, on that note, I'm going to play around with you, which I call one-touch led football. It's basically a rapid fire, but you can give us more reasoning if you want to. It's just picking one or the other. You might lose a few friends in the process, but I hope that doesn't happen. Okay, in terms of a memory, Akshay, Hero ISL season 2 or season 6, where you went on and top the league?
I would say season 6.
Okay, but obviously you were involved there, so that makes sense as well. Winning the Hero Super Cup 2019 or winning the League Winners' Shield in 2019-20?
I mean, definitely the League Winners' Shield 1920.
Okay, fair enough. I think I expected you to answer that. What did you do? How did you celebrate that, by the way? I never really got a chance to ask you that.
So they were like 20, 30 of us who were watching that match in our office, actually, in FC Goa's offices. And, we all had, we had pizzas and beers and all of that in the middle of the FC Goa office and a projector that was sort of showcasing that match because it wasn't a home game and I wasn't able to travel. But we were, a whole bunch of us together, and then we celebrated, of course. Like, it was a huge celebration within the office. And then about a week later, the whole squad, when they were down again, like, we took everyone out for a night out in Goa, and we had a great time just partying it up and celebrating that with all the boys and all the coaching staff, and yeah, we had a good time. Like that was definitely a memorable night for me.
Well deserved as well. Okay, next one. In terms of an impact signing, Hugo Bumu, Manuel Lanzarote, or Coro? The bigger one for you.
I would say Coro. Like before he came to us, he was playing as a winger, and like signing him as a striker, which was a decision that like we made like with Sergio, and it was his call as well to play in that position. But that ended up being a sort of historic thing for Indian football altogether. I didn't expect that, to go on for as long as it did, and as consistent as it was. And I love Koro. He's a thorough professional, and like what he's done for us. We'll always be grateful. He's I would say already in our Hall of Fame. And but yeah, I mean, like Bumo is not far behind in terms of like his caliber, and I think he was the one player that I think the only foreign player that we gave a 3-year contract to, because we saw that early on that he was capable of magic on the field at times, and like he showed that last season. So yeah, but Koro I would think still wins that for me for now.
That makes my next question redundant, which is Coro Reynaldo, who is also a prolific goal scorer. So I'll move to the next one, which is Gregory Arnola and Lucio, or Murtada Fall and Peña. Who would you prefer?
I think sort of Lucio and Gregory were like a powerhouse sort of centre back, with a huge presence in the box, and and Lucio being the legend that he is, of course carries a lot of weight. It's a tough one, but I'd go with Gregory and Lucio.
Okay, that's interesting. I thought you might say Murtada Fall and Peña, because goal-scoring defenders always come in handy as well, don't they? Okay, next one. Romeo Fernandes, Brandon Fernandes, and Mandar Rao. Out of these three Goans, the one who you really admire the most, if you had to pick one.
In terms of sheer technical ability and on the ball genius, I would say it's Brandon. And like I have huge hopes for him, and huge sort of aspirations for him, and the fact that he's also become an integral playmaker in the national team makes him that much more admirable, for what he's achieved. So yeah, I'd go with Brandon in that one.
The assist king, Brandon, and you're right, absolutely, for the national team as well. Do you have a chance to catch up with him, to chat with him, put your arm around his shoulder or something like that, and you have like a relationship with him off the pitch as well?
So I actually keep a fairly arm's length sort of distance from the dressing room as a rule. But I do have a few sort of, casual moments with these guys every now and then. It's not as often. And, that is by design as well. Because we like to keep, I like to keep that sort of power or sort of sphere of influence through the director of football and the coach. And, so we have an environment where the owners don't really interfere or mingle too much with the technical and the sporting side of things once everything's in place. But yeah, we do have a few casual moments here and there, when we are having those sort of let your hair down events or something like that.
I was just asking in terms of whether you see him as a leader, a future leader of FC Goa as well, because Igor Stimac has some glowing things to say about him, particularly with what he's offered to the national team.
Yeah, most definitely. Like I think he is showing a lot of promise. Like he's already achieved a lot, and I think the best of him is still to come, and he has a lot of years in his legs. And you know, like we are counting on him to be a leader in the dressing room and in the FC Goa squad. So, and you know, and he's shown a lot of signs and sort of promise to be that person. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Amazing guy, but as we are live, he's probably watching Southern India or CID. That's what he likes watching when he's not kicking a ball around, which is a complete revelation to me when I spoke to him. Okay, in terms of a bigger rival for you, Akshay, as a football club, Bengaluru, Kerala, or ATK Mohun Bagan?
Like for me, sporting wise, I would say it's Bengaluru. You know, like we haven't always had the best of run, at least since the time I've been involved with like against Bangalore. I mean, to be fair, they weren't involved in ISL before that. So,
Yeah.
and you know, and it's been a sort of great sort of rivalry and competition. I think that we share with them. I mean, we admire them as a club as well. They've done a lot of great things in Indian football. They've done a lot of firsts for Indian football. So yeah, out of the three, I would put Bangalore up there in terms of what they have been doing, and and purely sporting rivalry as well on the pitch. I'm looking forward to beating them this season.
And speaking of meeting Bengaluru, my next question and my final one in this rapidish fire, whatever, is the toughest player Goa have played against, according to you, Chetri, Mendoza of Chennai, or Marcelino?
I mean, for me personally, I think the one who's punished us the most, at least in the last couple of years, has been Marcelino. There was of course Mendoza in that epic season 2 rivalry, and the finale, the way that finished. But I mean, someone who's able to make something out of nothing against us, at least, has been Marcelino in a few sort of epic strikes and a few epic games where he's kind of turned the fortunes around for whichever team he was representing that year against us. He's done that a couple of times. So, and he's a great player. I like him. I mean, not to take anything away from Chetri or Mendoza.
No, certainly not. Absolutely is. And it's a tough trip. Every time you speak of Marcelino or Mendoza, they were such impact signings for their respective clubs. But you spoke of the final of season 2. There was also the final of season 2018-19 that lost to Bengaluru FC. If there's one thing you'd want to change in the 6 seasons, even though you've been involved in 4 of them, what would that be? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but I had to ask you.
I mean, yeah, like that loss against Bengaluru was, I mean, like we all felt that because like many a times in that game, it felt like we were a few centimeters away from sort of winning the league. But apart from the games, like the one thing I would change, if like looking back at the last few years, is, I mean, like we always signed a lot of great players, but there wasn't always perhaps a role for them to be played within the club, and and that's one of the reasons why I say, for example, last year we had only 6 foreigners instead of 7 foreigners, is because like how to optimize the bench in a way that everyone's raring and happy and willing to sort of give it their 100%. And like one of the mistakes I think we made was like over-signing and trying to have a backup for a backup, where we should have relied on our instinct and bet more on the fact that our Indian players will be able to, I mean, like sort of fill those gaps, So yeah, like I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what came to my mind.
It does. It leads me nicely to the second bit, which is, what is the one moment that you're extremely proud of? Of course, apart from winning the Shield, which you've answered already. Is it the records that Goa has broken, the number of goals they've scored, the number of wins they've racked up, or just the satisfaction in amongst goals?
I think apart from the cups and the trophies, like the one proudest moment I think is the fact what we sort of spoke about earlier was having 7 goals on the pitch at the same time, or so for me those things like matter more, I would say, than the trophies and the cups, because it gives us that sort of confidence that we're going in the right direction. And like that makes it feel like it can become something organically and stuff. So yeah.
There's also chat, Akshay, of the ISL being held in either Goa or in Kerala. What, according to you, makes Goa a good choice for the Hero ISL bubble season, if I can call it that, if it were to happen then?
I think Goa is perfectly positioned. Like, I mean, I've been thinking about this since the start of the pandemic, and since the lockdown is. But I mean, the only way the league can successfully sort of happen is if it happens in one location, so that people don't have to travel. Players don't have to move around consistently throughout the country. And Goa's got the fields, the stadiums, the hotels, the amount of infrastructure, and a lot of that is going to be not used right now, also because of the pandemic. So it's a great opportunity for Goa, both from an economic point of view and a sporting point of view. And it's the right place. It's like small enough, but it's so much of Goa is built around football that like there's enough for all the 10 clubs to be able to share and have a successful league over here. So yeah, fingers crossed. I'm hoping it happens in Goa.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to that as well when that gets finalized. But Akshay, we've spoken about Goa, FC Goa, the Goan community, the Forza Goa Foundation. But my one final question before we end this is, who is Akshay Tandon, and what does he want to be remembered as in Indian football, the ISL, or in India at large?
I haven't always dreamed of owning a football club or running a football club, but ever since we've been sort of involved with this, like the one vision that at least I'm working towards is, like, realistically, having studied the market, having studied the level of Indian football and where our boys are and girls are at, what I'm hoping for is that by 2034 we are able to produce, like by the 2034 World Cup, we are able to produce the large majority of the players that are representing the national team through the Goan ecosystem that we build. It's a long vision, it's a long-term sort of thing. But if you're able to make a dent in the 2034 World Cup and announce to the world that India is here, I think that's a realistic and a vision, at least, that I'm sort of working towards. And if there's an impact that I could have, it would be that, that remembered for someone who did his bit for bringing India to the global footballing sort of landscape and making a mark.
I think that's a fantastic note and a vision to end this on. But I would like you to give a message to the East Lower Army, to the FC Goa fan club, to the Goa Army, and to Goan fans in general who are watching this.
Firstly, guys, everyone, thank you all for your continued support, even through this lockdown. Whenever I see any comments or things and people posting and supporting the club, it's really heartwarming to know that everyone's kind of waiting for the new season and everyone's just been with us this entire journey. If there is one thing that sort of gets me going through a difficult phase with the football club, it's knowing that the fans are still behind us and always behind us. I clearly remember, I think it was last season when the semi-finals and then the finals all happened in Mumbai, and there were more Goans and Goan fans in the field, whether it was the games were against Mumbai or whether the games were against Bangalore. And that's what these clubs sort of do for us, is like they rally the troops and like get them ready for battle, and are always behind us. So as the 12th man, and we're deeply honored and like to be carrying that sort of mantle with them. So yeah, thank you all for your support, guys. And yeah, like we're looking forward, and I'm pretty sure that you're not going to be disappointed in the new season. There's a lot of exciting new signings coming, and we're gonna have a pretty cracker season this season as well.
Amen to that, Akshay. Thank you so much for your time today and for that message to the fans as well. And it was a long overdue conversation, but we got there. Post on Goa.
Thanks, Anant. Yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks everyone who tuned in. I'll see you soon, Anant. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks.
Yeah, bye.
Wow, great. Fabulous insight there from Akshay Tandon about FC Goa, the past and the future. And there's so much promise that's attached to it as well. Hope you guys enjoyed that session. Thank you to everybody who sent in their questions. Eastlower Army, Gore Army, FC Goa Fan Club, guys watching this in Goa and beyond. Thank you so much. We'll keep bringing this to you regularly. Tomorrow we have another very special guest, and I'll just wait for the ISL team to let you guys know. So I'm not going to announce it, much like Akshay was not allowed to announce most of the things, but hopefully FC Goa will be making those announcements soon, and the ISL team as well, along with that. Until the next time, which is hopefully tomorrow, it's goodbye.